control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. In my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Saturday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you all for being here with us, and thank you for coming in to join us on this epic adventure through the Paranormal Portal. I got my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard, here with me. He's in the remote studio. I don't have him on camera yet because I haven't introduced our premier guest tonight, which we are joined tonight by the original outlaw, Mr. Jim the Bear King. Welcome to the show, Don and Jim.
It's great being here, guys. Been a while since I've been here. It's good being back.
It's good to have you back, and thank you so much for coming back on. You've been an amazing guest several times already, but it's been a while, so it's good that we got you back in our wheelhouse once again for another journey through the world of the bear.
I don't know how good a journey it is, but it's been a hell of an adventure, I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, I know that pretty much everybody here probably knows who you are. I think that you're one of those names in the Bigfoot community that's, you know, doesn't really require an introduction. I got to get Don's head moved over a little bit here because his head got chopped off. There we go. Okay. But sorry, Don. Sorry about that. Don, you okay?
Yeah, I'm half the man I used to be, apparently.
Well, you got half of that going for you. So, but Bear, you know, you've had these experiences since, I mean, pretty much about as early as a person can have these experiences.
Well, you know, it wasn't by choice, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them, you know, any encounter with one of these things is not by choice. I guess I look at everything from a total perspective, and first one I'd ever seen was when I was 6 in 1966. Knowing that, that's 2 years before, well, 67 was when Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin took that famous
Mm-hmm.
trip up there, Bluff Creek, California, and, you know, they was able to film Patty. And, but even then, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, in 1966, I was a whole 6 years old, and to have something wake us, me and my brother, up one night, making all kind of racket outside our bedroom window during the, I guess it had to have been August of that time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, only way I could ever describe it, and I've, you know, we've related this on the show before, it was the biggest monkey I ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And didn't know no other way to describe it. And, of course, you know, when me and my brother left the bedroom hauling ass to Mama's room, she you know, what's wrong? And there's a big monkey outside the bedroom window, leaning on the barbed wire fence up there on the hill. As I've always stated, I never knew her to get up to go look out the window to see if one was there or not.
Mm.
But she tried to convince us there wasn't one, but didn't know what it was, had no clue what it was, knew it didn't belong, even at a ripe young age of 6 years of age, short of a zoo or a circus maybe, and
Right.
backyard wasn't no circus, and it wasn't no zoo, even though it became more of a zoo than we ever realized we had. And but you know, hindsight's 20/20. You look back over everything over all the years,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when, you know, you become interested in it. It helped to have a grandfather that knew of the things, and once he realized that me and my brother gained a certain age of recognition, probably about 71 or 72, when he admitted that there was such a thing as what they called in the South boogers.
Right.
A lot of people, you know, they find that as an insult. What so fun for me to even imagine it being other than anything other than a booger was when people, you know, want to call it a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, and looking on the history of the name Bigfoot is just a bastardized version of big and foot put together.
Sure.
When a newspaper out of California found these, you know, of Jerry Crew's logging crew up there,
Right.
see these big footprints. And so the word was two words. It was big and foot. And then it got turned into one word, which is Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And, but my granddaddy had been knowing these things since the 30s.
Oh.
So, you know, just knowing that he's been knowing of what they call these things in Mississippi are boogers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't call them monsters. They just call them boogers, or the boogeyman, or booger's going to get you, this or that. I mean, under threats. And there's people all over the South to this day. It really amazes me how when we first started doing the radio show back in the 90s, well, not the 90s, it was 2007, I think we did our first radio show.
Okay.
And the use of us using the word boogers and the boogerman's going to get you and all that, a lot of people all across the South and other parts of this country recognized the word, and they got to thinking about it, and they said, you know, I think booger's been around a hell of a lot longer than the word Bigfoot has, so, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get into a pissing argument with anybody over who owns the possessive word or the name of it. I just know that it's a very real animal, very real.
Now, Bear, can I ask you a question? You know, you said that you and your brother went and told your mom when you were seeing this big monkey out there. Now, did she grow up on that very farm as well, or was
Yes, she did.
so?
But see, she was I hate saying it, she was a strong country woman.
Okay.
Um, but she was an only child too.
Mm.
And I have been told that, my grandfather and grandmother basically spoiled her for her being the only child.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think my grandfather, I know she helped in the garden and a lot with the farm things we had to do around the farm.
Mm-hmm.
But she was more of a girly type woman instead of one that, like my wife, God bless her, I love her to death. She's one of the toughest women I ever knew. She was driving a tractor, pulling the hay trailer while her daddy was following the tractor and picking up bales of hay, throwing it onto the back of the trailer.
Mm.
And she was doing this when she was 8 years old, driving a tractor.
Oh,
and
that's
that's a hell of a woman.
Yeah.
I learned when I was young, but I was also a boy or a young man, but it wasn't nothing for all of us to utilize our strengths and everything. But
Sure.
Mom never was. She never cared that much about hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and when she just never was the type that probably even paid much attention to any of this.
Mm-hmm. So she made.
I know my granddaddy knew of it, and he kept it from her.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I was wondering because, if she was out there, the fact that she was never exposed to it. But, if that was the dynamics, then that makes perfect sense.
Well, it tickles the rip out of me. I even remember vaguely, even after me and my brother seen that one looking in our bedroom window, and we ended up having to sell that house, but it's still on the same acreage that I own to this very day. The house is still there.
Oh, cool.
It's the only acre we did not ever buy back because it had to go in arrears. My mama couldn't afford the house after my father left and divorced her and left her with 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved in with my grandfather, who just lived right around the road from us, and it really got to be an adventure. He taught me and my brother how to hunt. We was the sons he never had.
Mm-hmm.
But getting to what I was originally going to state was, between then and the time that me and my brother and my sister run into that one while we was chasing lightning bugs, or what other people call fireflies,
Mm-hmm.
that was in, like I said, probably 71, 72, somewhere in there. Can't remember. I know it was the spring of the year. But I also remember, relating back to what you just asked about my mom knowing anything about this, I knew my grandmother knew what it was, because we'd be outside running around late of an evening in the yard playing and whatever. And I'll never forget my grandmother coming to that door a million times saying, "Y'all better hurry up and get in the house or the booger man's going to get you." Now, for somebody who ain't said nothing to their child, which was my mom, they sure didn't have no problem bandying the word around about a booger man was going to get you.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Wow. Now, you said you're still on that same acreage. Do you still find that they're still around?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's probably not the same troop anymore. Actually, I don't think it is.
Okay.
I know that they've moved where they would keep their physical evidence, like teepee formation, stick formations, things like that. All the years that I was raised up out there, when all this was mainly going on, up until the 90s and early 2000s, they were formations on the northeast side of the hill. When my grandfather passed away, we used to have cattle on the place. And every evening my grandfather would call in the cows. And what he would use was what, old ranchers and farmers call a cattle call. It's a certain call that they replicate every day, every evening, toward dark, 30 every day. The cattle, the horses, once my grandfather would let out this call that would echo up the hill, the cattle and the horses would come all into the pasture.
Okay.
And I know that right before my grandfather passed away, he had to sell all of his cattle.
Mm.
And even after, he passed away in 93. And I heard the Boogers on the property still replicating my grandfather's cattle call every evening up until 2005.
Wow.
I got to noticing after 2005 they wasn't doing the cattle call anymore.
Oh, okay.
And, it wouldn't be every day, but they would pick their moments. And it was really cool to hear your grandfather's voice doing a cattle call in 2003, and he's been gone since 1993. You see what I'm saying? I mean, 10 years later, they're replicating the exact same cattle call that my grandfather would use every evening.
Wow.
To bring his cattle in to the local pasture. And about 2005, like I said, I noticed it just gradually disappeared. Then I started noticing, because I still hunt the property, I'd go up there all the time, I got to noticing that a lot of these formations that I would find on the northeast side of the hill were now on the northwest side of the hill.
Okay.
And to this day, the formations are still there. Whenever one would fall in from disusage or whatever, you could tell where they come back along and not rebuild it in the same formation that it was originally built in, but it'd be so similar that it was like replicating. And I just knew, because all those years that I would roam the hillside with my brother and my grandfather while these things was up there on the property, they was always consistent with their family troop or unit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that for some reason, between about 2005 up until now, they're still there, maybe not the same troop, but it's still being utilized by these creatures to this day.
Wow. I suppose, if it could be, and I realize it's probably idle speculation other than you seeing that the markers have moved, but it could be a generational thing or, or whatever. I just wonder why would they move out from a property that they've been at? But, who can tell? I don't expect you to have all those answers, but I find that really interesting.
Well, you also look at the surrounding neighbors that have come and gone over the years, and you can almost pattern how they run in that territory, that region up there. And for the longest, the ones that were there seemed more familiar with me, and it was almost to the point where I knew they was there. They were even to the extent with me, they knew when I would get out of my vehicle, say to go deer hunting every year. And they knew a certain time of year when the days got shorter, they knew the surrounding ambiance of hunting season beginning to start, like people was sighting in their rifles and things. People at the local deer camp, just on up the hill from us and everything was, more activity was increasing there. They pick up on things like this. They have to pick up on things like this. It pays for them to. If they didn't, we wouldn't be having this discussion about it being such a mystery. You can't pattern these things, but you can to a certain degree. And I just knew that the ones that were on the property, if they are still of the same bloodline, it's so diluted that they don't recognize what I am to that property like they did 15 years ago.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's of course a lot of time that's changed, and yeah. I wonder about their lifespan, and I know there's no way to know for sure, but I wonder if it's similar to ours, or if it's similar to a mountain gorilla's lifespan. I often wonder that. Because
I've done a little research into that.
Okay.
I'm no genius. I just know that I would guesstimate a very rough estimate. Probably 35 at the most 40 years of life.
Okay.
Period. I can just imagine their stress levels. To remain elusive this long, think how on the edge they'd have to be 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, every little thing that was untoward or something that didn't belong in that location is picked up on immediately, and they've got to understand where that come from, how it come from, why it come from, and what threat is it to us. That's the way I tell a lot of people, you got to think like these things at times. And for their stress levels to be that high all the time, and, not having other than medicinal properties from plants and trees and things like that, if they lose a toe, say, in crossing a railroad track, and their toe was to catch under one of those iron bars or something, and they was to pinch off a toe or something, that's, just snap a toenail off your foot and see how long you can walk around without limping. And
Yeah.
could you just imagine a Bigfoot doing this now? And that would slow one down. It'd make them ill-tempered while they're probably running a slight fever or whatever. I mean, there's just no way this thing could be living more than probably 50 years. I can't see that happening. I just cannot see that happening.
Yeah, that's curious, and I do appreciate what you're saying, and I think that that is saying a lot, that to remain unseen and to remain out in the wilds, they have to be on high alert all the time. So that's a good point.
It's stress.
Right. Yeah.
Think how stressed we are. And we're civilized.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some of us, yeah. But
Still,
however you define civilization, I just know you can't define civilization and use the word Bigfoot or booger in the same context.
yeah, that's true. We're about 4 minutes, actually 3.5 minutes out from break, but I think it would be fun to get into some of the greatest stories that you've been a part of in this quest of yours to understand what it is that a Bigfoot is, and I know you've got so many stories, and we had as I was talking to you before the show, there was a request for the quad story, And I don't know what that one is, and I know.
Now, I'll put it to you this way.
Okay.
If Gary's listening, and I hope he is,
Uh-huh.
I've told so many stories, that one didn't strike a bell. If he's in the chat room,
Uh-huh.
if he would feed me just a little more, I may recognize what he's asking for.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. Well, Don will watch for that, right, Don?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of Gary here real quick through Messenger. So I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do my dead level best because, there's so many different things that have occurred in regard to this. And there's so many different times that people have experienced these things, especially if they're from the country or whatever. They just never put it together that, well, I'll be damned, I may have had a booger in my backyard all this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of it is, I don't think that maybe a lot of people know what they're looking for. And that's what I think takes a lot of people by surprise, is that they have weird stuff happening, but they may not all know what does that mean. I think that I found traces of them in the area I used to live after I knew what to look for. But before that, I was just wandering in the woods and had no idea that there could be something there. So I think that that's a big part of it, that people just don't. Many people, and I don't mean to, disqualify or cast judgments here, but many people just don't know what to look for. And I think that...
Well, you want a logical answer. Everything a human is, especially a civilized one, has to be in order.
Yeah.
And to be in order, it's got to be logic. And if it's illogical, they don't want to think illogical.
Right.
We'll get more into that later on.
Yeah, I'm sure. But we are just about a minute out of the break now. And you've been doing this for how long? Have you been going out? How many years?
Since I got my driver's license in 1975, the world was my oyster. Because up till then, I was limited on the hill behind my house.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got them driver's license, it opened up 6 to 8 counties in the state of Mississippi, which gradually opened up into the whole state, into Alabama, and I've taken it a lot farther since.
Yeah, you've been all over the place, and I know you guys do a lot of outings and trips out to see what you can find, and my hat's off
We're
to you.
getting your way eventually. It's getting there. We just ain't got there yet.
Yeah, you got to get up here. There's sure a lot to see. I mean, just beautifully. The area around here is just amazingly gorgeous. But I've seen things that I think could very well be that signs of these Bigfoot. And yeah, it'd be neat to see what you thought as well. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our first break. So hang on to your hats. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. So don't go away for more of the Paranormal Portal and Jim the Bear King right as we return. ladies and gentlemen, we're into the second half hour of our show tonight with Don and myself, and our special guest tonight is Jim the Bear King, the original Bigfoot Outlaw, is joining us tonight. Bear, how you doing so far? You doing good?
I am doing great. I am absolutely doing great.
Fantastic. So I think it'd be fun to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the most phenomenal stories or experiences that you guys have checked out in terms of Bigfoot encounters or booger encounters.
I've told a lot of stories over a long time since I've become public on the internet, especially in 1999 and 2000. Up till then, I basically was doing things mostly by myself, especially after my brother passed away and then my grandfather passed away, and it was just me, the Lone Ranger. What was so, and is always so impressive to me, is I was taught by the best, as I said before, my grandfather. Taught me about how to be a ethical hunter, a respecter of wildlife, game, fish, take care of the environment, the whole 9 yards. I think that's made me a better tracker in the woods. And a lot of people call themselves researchers. I do not even try to profess to be something I'm not. I'm not a researcher. I just learned a long time ago from my grandfather that when you really want to learn what you can about a certain species of animal, you've got to make it a total devotion of study. And there's nothing more miraculous, I guess that's the best word I can say, to actually see that one when I was 6 years of age, that monkey that didn't belong in Mississippi. Then after we went through the lightning bug incident, I'm sure that y'all could show the archives on this past show I've done, instead of me having to rehash all that again.
Oh, sure.
A lot of the stories I learned over the years became more amazing is from what I learned from the very short span of time I got to actually witness one, hear one, know that what I was listening to was one, being able to put all these corresponding clues together to come up with a viable picture of what's going on. And that's what really blows my mind about this whole subject. It's just as enthusiastic a subject to be into in 2020 as it was when, my grandfather just turned me and my brother loose on this thing when we was around 72. That's when he become clean with me and my brother about his incident with one back in the 30s, and I think that's also related on one of the shows that I did with you guys. And people could go back and listen to those archives. It's easier than me just repeating it again. But there's a lot of stories that have occurred that I never actually got around to telling.
Oh, please.
Well, one of them was, and I've been on so many shows, and of course, I've been a host and co-host with Bigfoot Outlaw Radio for many years, and I backed off from that quite a bit because I needed to get back to the roots of what I was doing. I kind of lost myself there for a while, health-wise and otherwise.
Sure.
But I've got things fixed now where I feel better than I have in a long time. I have more energy to do it the way I used to do it. Actually, this year, in and of itself, I've been out in the woods by myself at night numerous times this calendar year. I just go to a location that I knew had plenty of physical evidence around, knowing them things are there, knowing they're in the immediate vicinity. I drive up to this location, always turn my vehicle, my truck around where it's pointed on the way out. I don't want to have to sit there and argue with one with reverse and drive a lot, because
Yeah.
if they don't want you going nowhere, you ain't going nowhere. So I want a straight shot leading straight the hell out if I have to get out.
Yeah.
But I've learned enough to know that I can pull into these locations, turn off the motor of the truck, let the surrounding ambiance, and it'll be dark. I'm talking about out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
All you have is the dome of stars overhead looking down at you.
Mm-hmm.
Your eyes, after a while, even if it didn't make no difference what phase the moon was in at the time, a new moon or a full moon or whatever, the ambiance of the lights would help a lot. Of course, you're not fooling the booger when I pull into there.
Sure.
Actually, that's part of the plan. You want to pull into a location that you have permission to pull into. I got to say that.
Yes. Good
I'm
point.
not going to say I've done it all my life that way, but I try my best to, normally the places I go to, I've got permission to be there.
Uh-huh.
And I'll pull into these locations, I'll kill the motor, and I'll just sit there and listen all night long. I've had them come up to the window of the truck while I'm laying across the front seat of the cab of my truck. I've never seen them that good, but I'd wake up sometime during the morning, about 2:30, 3 in the morning, if I hadn't heard anything up to then, with them vocalizing, trying to solicit a response from me while I'm parked in that location. I know that the longer I can patiently sit there and wait them out, they can't help themselves. They got to come up there and see, well, who is this stupid SOB in this vehicle that can't hear us yelling at him, but he ain't responding to it in no way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
And the curiosity is just get the best of them. And they've come up. I have seen the outlines of their body just envelop the driver's side of the truck window while I'm sitting there across the front of my truck with my back up against the passenger door.
Mm-hmm.
And they could even be one looking at me through that window. I don't pay it no attention. I'm always watching the one that comes up to the driver's side trying to peek in.
Uh-huh.
And it's really cool. I'm sure it wouldn't be to a novice or somebody who's never done this before, but if you can grab yourself enough physically to remain there, it's worth every second of it. Worth every second of it.
Yeah, well, I think you gotta, I think you gotta prepare for that the first sighting, or many first sightings, to get over the fact that and I haven't had the opportunity to see one in front of me, but I just can't imagine how that feels, how small you feel in.
I'll put it to you like this, brother.
Sure.
I've heard so many people that come and go into this community or in this line of work or this hobby or whatever you want to call it, because it don't pay worth a damn, I'll tell you that right off the bat. But so many people come into this thing wanting it so bad. I think that actually hinders people. I do know that I've read enough to know that fear or anything that's different, like people describe it as chill bumps crawling on your skin. You feel that creepy, hairy sensation on the nape of your neck right behind your head.
Sure.
I know that in a roundabout sort of way has to be a survival instinct that is so deeply ingrained in our psychic. You got to remember, we was all at one time hunter-gatherers instead of civilized people.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people have been too civilized to the degree they've lost that ability. And people want to see it they want to see it so bad they can taste it. I've taken so many people out from different parts of the United States and other countries, and they want to see one more than anything in this world. But it don't take you taking them into the woods or someplace, and you can tell them all day long what they're doing wrong, but they can't help themselves at times. They can't stop avoiding looking right, left, backwards, forward, up, down, north, south, east, west, and back asswards. They're all over themselves trying to look in every direction at once. And as I said earlier about you have to think like one a lot. If I was a booger over there on that other ridge watching some idiot who can't stop turning his head fast enough to avoid walking into boles and trunks of trees, something's wrong. And that darn booger sitting over there, why in the hell do I want to be around somebody nervous like that? And I know that occurs.
Sure.
It blows a booger's mind to, they have an acute sense of smell and an acute sense of hearing. Have to. It's got to be the ultimate predator or survivalist out there.
Sure.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
And these things will pick up on nuances quicker than anything out there. A deer will do this. Any wild animal can catch up on vibes from somebody who's nervous in the woods. I've seen it happen too many times. And it's easier to say you can overcome it than it is to actually physically be able to do it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience, a lot of time, and a lot of respect for these things to pick up on the fact that you aren't there to take something from them, that you're a part of the environment. And once a person can become more like a part of a booger's environment, they're more accepted quicker. These things watch us. They watch us all the time. They mimic us in so many different ways. And it's not just the mimicry towards humans. They use mimicry of other animals. And I'm sure, everybody's always heard you cannot fool Mother Nature. Well, I like narrowing it down. You damn sure can't fool a booger.
Yeah.
The only one you're fooling is yourself. And people get frustrated at this.
Yeah.
And then, before you know it, they make a big splash in the community because they're so fired up about it. And some people even claim that they actually seen one or two or three or four or whatever. But the ones that get me are the ones that claim they've seen one, and yet they get disillusioned with it. And then they just quit. And I'm sitting here thinking, ever since I seen the first one, I wanted to see the second one. Ever since I seen the second one, I want to see the third one. And I've seen enough to know that each one of them are different in their own ways, their own features, their characteristics, their body shape. Everything about them is different. Their hair color, the whole 9 yards. It's not like looking at your average deer and say, oh, that's just another deer. There's so many different characteristics that you can visually see. It just looks just like Patty. And that's another thing that gets me a lot of times. People say, well, if it don't look like Patty, you didn't see a Bigfoot. I'm sitting here saying the totally opposite. If the only ones you've seen and every one you have seen looks just like Patty, I tend to think you ain't never seen one to begin with.
So there's a lot of variation physically.
Yes, they are. Temperaments, moodiness.
Yeah.
I've seen some that are gangbangers, as I've mentioned before. My best friend, Dan Ricky, calls the teenagers, the ones before they reach the maturity level of alpha, call them gangbangers because they like running together and creating mischief. And they're bored stiff. they got to have something to do constantly, keep their active brain going all the time. Uh, that's another given factor on why I don't think they live to be no older than they do.
Sure.
It's just if it was a controlled environment, it would be different.
Yeah.
But this is not a controlled animal.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the main reasons the government will not acknowledge their existence, because they can't control it. No way, shape, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm. Could we just take a minute and talk about physical characteristics? Because you just touched on that. I think that's important. Would you say that, because we hear those variety of reports, like, well, it looked a lot like a man, but with a hairy body, and then you hear other ones that are like, yeah, it looked like a big monkey with a different nose, and it's hard to kind of get a feel. But are you suggesting then that there's that much of a physical discrepancy in the Bigfoot's collective, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I know this. I haven't seen any from up north or any from the Pacific Northwest out where you guys are at. I have seen some in swampy locations. Mm-hmm. They look more like what they can call a swamp ape looking like thing. Kind of looks a lot like Swamp Thing, you know, the old DC comic book.
Right.
Only it ain't green.
Mm-hmm.
Most time it's maroonish type red color.
Okay.
It's a rust color. R-U-S-T,
yeah.
Rust. It's like a rusty maroon looking color, but it blends in. Mm-hmm. Then you got those who are more of a black sheen cape or hair. Some of those guys look a lot like swamp apes. Mm. They call them swamp apes in the South. Mm-hmm. You've got those who, the more swampy locations, they have more hair.
Okay.
And I think what that is, for many reasons, could be a deterrent for insects.
Sure.
The conditions, the briar thickets, and they don't just walk the easy trails. You got to get into the thick of some pretty nasty stuff to get to them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, some are taller than others, and I've noticed that the taller ones are from more mountainous terrain. And that brings me back to my hunting skills I was taught by my grandfather. Mm-hmm. I've noticed a lot more times that you could kill the average white-tailed deer in the state of Mississippi, and he might dress out probably 120 pounds. But you get into mountainous locations where you've got full-bodied white-tailed deer, and they are same deer, only they are a lot larger in stature and body mass. Mm-hmm. To pull those grades they pull on those mountains and those tall hills. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an ecosystem type deal. It's just, what was that word I told you last time we talked? I'm going to try to say it. It's a mouthful.
Okay.
It's the most environmentally adaptable,
yes,
ecosystematically, evolutionarily adapted creature that there is that I know of.
Yeah, and I really agree with you too, because they not only are found everywhere, but they seem to be thriving everywhere, and any kind of environment the Earth has to offer, they seem to be there, and that's
I
really.
think a lot of the sightings have occurred. You got to remember, I come up in the '60s, and this was when, especially in the South, and we wasn't near no big cities. Mm-hmm. A lot of the local towns would roll up their sidewalks at 5 o'clock every evening, and then they wouldn't even be open on a Sunday.
Sure.
And at that point in time, the only factories were in big cities. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people from the country ended up taking up their family once they married off, and they left the farm, moved to the city. Then they become a 24/7 world in the city.
Mm-hmm.
But since the automobile and everything like that became more affordable, civilizations really has boomed. The world has turned into a 24/7 world anymore. They don't roll up the sidewalks anymore.
Right.
You got people coming in and out at all hours of the night,
Mm-hmm.
either going to work or coming home from work or whatever, and you're out there on these lonely roads, especially if they still lived in the country, because they can now.
Yeah.
The newer generation that grew up in those factories, they had children, they went and got married. But they also went to college so they wouldn't kill themselves in the factory anymore.
Right.
And then these people were the ones who would get these hedgehog and these money advice people and say, you don't need to build a house in town to avoid paying all these city taxes, these county taxes. What you need to do is find you a place out in the country, build your home out there. The value of it will increase, and then you can drive back and forth to work.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, has had more to do with the increase in sightings, especially since the 80s up until now, than I believe anything else. A lot of people say, well, people are seeing more of them, so they got bound to be increasing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's so much increasing. It is that we're now in their comfort zone level, which is usually at night.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense, but a lot of sightings do come out a day, though. But do you think they're being pushed out of their comfort zone due to the?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Okay.
Logging right now is just. I've had my research partner, Mark Henderson. He was just telling me just yesterday that he found out up there at his local deer camp that I've been up there hunting with him before, and we've researched the deer camp with him together.
Mm-hmm.
And they've come in there and basically have wiped out a large tract of land that he was hunting exclusively on. He's really concerned about where this has pushed the troop that he had found up there. Mm-hmm. I said, well, they haven't gone far. You just got to figure out where they went to. And how they got there, and so forth and so on. Then, of course, with logging as it is, they reseed the land, and within 3 years, the sage grass has grown up. The short pines that's growing up has grown up to about 5 or 6 feet tall on your chest, and that's tall enough for Bigfoot running on all fours, using its knuckles. It's a quadrupedal type animal. And they'll run underneath all that sage, and you'll never know it.
Okay. We got about 2 minutes again, but you were talking earlier about the senses and how people are losing that. The one thing that I find amazing, and it seems to persist, and I think that this must be a survival mechanism from way, way back in our history, but people seem to know when they're being watched. And I find that absolutely interesting because it comes up in ghost stories. It comes up in the cryptids and Bigfoot and all of the different areas where people are confronting or being confronted by some other type of being. But people seem to know when they're being watched, and
it's a survival instinct, bro.
Right.
I'm telling you.
But I'm encouraged by the fact that we still seem to have retained that from our ancient past. Maybe when we were on the menu, when there were things that were actively trying to eat us, But I'm.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's just survival.
Yeah.
You can inure yourself to the stage where you think you're totally protected all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Very kind.
But one thing my grandfather did always teach me, he said, never ignore it when your hair starts crawling up on the back of your neck, or you get them chill bumps just break out on your arm for no reason. It's either that or you're sick with something, And the only times it's ever really occurred to me, most of the time, has been when I'm around these things.
Wow.
And it really really, I think at the time depends on what mode they come in. Are they coming in actively
Sure.
with an attitude?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can feed off of them just like they feed off of us. You just got to know to recognize the signs.
That's a great point.
Some people are so secure in their own little fantasy world that they think that, nothing will ever happen to them. And that's one of the big mistakes.
You're right, brother. But we're going to go to our hour break, ladies and gentlemen. 1 hour is under us, and there's another hour ahead. So just take a couple minutes, use the loo, get a drink, and join us back here in just a couple minutes. We'll be right back.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking gas. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed.
Carolina's not like those she's with. They're attractive. just one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force, it is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 is upon us here on the Paranormal Portal. Welcome back. If you're not familiar with the show, if you're watching on YouTube, we have to do those breaks because we're attached to the network, which is tfrlive.com, as well as iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And, of course, they have to have commercial breaks. So we take breaks here as well on YouTube, just so you know. It's a necessary thing in order to keep everything synced up and working properly. But our guest tonight is Jim the Bear King. And we are going through a great evening of discussion and understanding about these amazing beings of our forests. But I got to tell you, brother, there are a lot of claims about these things that are hard to understand. And I don't know how you feel about this, but have you? I imagine you must have heard about it. Some people claim that they see eye glow. Not just reflection, but glowing eyes.
I ain't found yet where they stuck a battery up their ass, but
Okay.
you know, for an eye to glow, it's got to have a power source. You get my drift here? I'm not being ugly. I'm just trying to be frank and honest.
Sure. It is, yeah.
I hadn't seen that Duracell rabbit changing out a battery on him yet.
Yeah, it is something that I've heard more and more, especially since you were on the show last time, and it was a claim that I really wasn't familiar with, and then it started coming at me from all these different people that are experiencing it, and I'm like, well, what the hell could that be?
Let me tell you the first time, and it kind of gets back to one of those stories I was promising earlier, and I just hadn't got around to it yet. Me and my brother, he bought him a brand new truck in 1977.
Okay.
And it was during deer season, and we learned a long time ago because we've got permission to hunt a lot of land. And what we would do the night before we decided where we was going to go hunting, we'd always take our spotlight and we'd jump in the truck when he was driving, and his side of the truck was the side that this field, this pasture, large field was on. Mm-hmm. And what we call ourselves doing, a lot of people when they start spotlighting for deer at night, a lot of people just assume that spotlighting deer was killing deer illegally. No, it wasn't. A lot of people did do it. You've got illegal hunters of every sign, shape, fashion, whatever out there. What we would do, we would always hit all the surrounding fields around our deer camp, and we would drive to the center of that big opening before we'd even turn a spotlight on. We'd never drive real slow or nothing, because if you're driving real slow, that's suspicious action. We was looking for deer. Mm-hmm. To maybe go and hunt there the next morning, or on the edge of it, catching the deer that went into that field when they would leave the field early the next morning. We'd try to get ahead of them on a path or a trail that the deer take to enter the field or to leave the field, and we'd get behind them. We'd come in from another direction and get ahead of the deer, hoping to ambush them.
Okay.
We drove to the middle of this field. He hit his brakes, When he did, he hit his spotlight, and he panned from the far left rapidly to the far right, then back to the left again. Usually when you do that quick motion, any deer that's out there is going to look up.
Okay.
This time, we stopped in the middle of this huge field. The field was about, I guess, 75, 80 yards across from where we was to the tree line on the other side. And my brother saw it. Like I said, I was in the passenger seat, and I was looking over his shoulder while he was crowded out the window with the spotlight in his left hand and his right hand on the steering wheel. He said, "Dang, what in the heck is this?" And so I looked around him real quick, and I could see some bright red eyes. And they looked like they was glowing, but they looked like they was up in a tree. And I knew it wasn't no dang deer, and the first thing it hit my mind was, well, you just spotlighted an old barred owl in the trunk of that tree. But then I got to thinking, I said, you know, that's almost 80 yards across there, and I can see the distance between its right eye and its left eye. So that had to be a hellacious damn owl. And I got to looking, I said, hold your light on it until it drops his head or turns his eyes or whatever. And while he did, I noticed then the shadow of its body, and I knew then I was looking at a huge male Bigfoot. About that time, to the right, well, it was to the male's left, to our right, I caught a little shorter in stature, size down, standing right beside it, just a few feet to the right of it, our right. I'm going to get us all confused. Anyway, it wasn't looking directly at us. It was looking back at the male. And when it was looking at the male, all I could see was greenish, yellowish tint to its eye. And I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute. I've seen, about that time, the male turned its head to look at the other one. When it did, the color of the eye changed too. It wasn't looking directly at us from 80 yards away anymore. It had looked at the one that was looking at it. That's when I noticed that that was a female. And she was smaller stature. The head shape was totally different, the whole 9 yards. But when the male turned his eyes directly away from the light to look at the female, its eye color changed the same as the female's. It went to a yellowish, greenish type color. And that's when it hit me, you know. I'm sitting here watching. I said, wait. When the light is directly on it, because about that time was when the female turned its head to look toward the light, and its eyes turned red too. So I knew then I was looking at something pretty strange right here.
Yeah.
And what it was, the best I can describe it from the things I've read over the years ever since I've seen that, that the tapia of the eye changes from the angle that the eye is focused on the light source.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
If it was looking dead square on, it was red. Then it turned its head and looked the other direction. It was more like a yellow, whitish, greenish tint to it. But it was looking, what was happening, the spotlight was hitting the eye from the side instead of directly head on. Then I told my brother, I said, well, we're blinding the hell out of them. He says, turn the light off real quick. So he turned the light off. And while we were sitting there looking in that same general direction that they was at, you could see both of the eyes. And I hate using the word glow, but it was an ambient beam, kind of. But we had just activated probably every cone in his eyes when we hit it with that darn spotlight.
Huh. So you think you were seeing like a light leak kind of like one of those glow in the dark things. So you shine a light on it, and it will continue to glow a little bit past that time.
Yes, I'm thinking that's what happened. But I've also run into these things in the dark in other locations,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd look around at the sky. I mean, Dan Ricky, again, was with us on one time when we was in Texas. And there wasn't no moon out that night, but there was every star in the sky, and you could see it. You could see all the stars.
Okay.
And Dan noticed something kind of pinkish, reddish looking at us. And it just blew his mind. He said, Bear, come over here a minute. Come over here a minute. So I went over there and looked at it, and then you could see it blink its eyes. But only ambient light source that there was the starlight.
Mm.
And it affected it to a certain degree that you could see it very faint. And I'm not talking about a red dot.
Okay.
It was very faint, but it was there. And we knew he was looking at a Bigfoot because he was looking at it through the Gen 3 night vision he had, which made those eyes come out greenish in the Generation 3 night vision scope he was using.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, when he would, and he was looking at it and it was registering green, and I was looking at it and it was still reddish.
Hmm. Yeah, I know that night vision will change the tint, of course, just because of the what is it called, the capture device. It's pretty much monochromatic anyway. So
Right.
yeah.
I'm not big into electronics. I don't record. I don't
Sure.
film. I don't do none of the above. Like I said, I'm just a tracker. And I do know this from the time I've seen these things closer than I needed to see them at the time. And this was including in the daytime too.
Uh-huh.
The eyes are more oval, roundish, and the pupil, or what we call our little brown spot, not the black spot in it, I'm talking about the whole eyeball itself,
Sure.
almost envelops the whole optical.
Oh. So therefore they'd be more sensitive to light is what you believe?
Yes.
Okay.
Have to be able to see as well as they do in the dark in the first place. Think about it.
Yeah. No,
It's got to open fully in the dark, like an owl.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, it certainly could be, and that's a great explanation to put on the table, because that's something that's really boggled my mind. It's like, what does that mean? How does that work? Bioluminescence and such.
I've heard so many descriptions of eye glow.
Yeah.
Eye glow.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying, but I also know that the ones I've seen, it don't naturally seem like more of a glow than it does like a very faint deal.
Okay.
It's not as pronounced as a lot of people describe it as being.
Okay.
But then again, once they realize what maybe they're looking at, their explanations could also be as big as what they think it is too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing about it is nobody has this stuff all figured out, but I think it's incredibly interesting that so many claims are out there, and I think obviously you got to take some of that with a grain of salt, just because I think people are terrified in most cases, and they're trying to recall things, and sometimes memory is kind of tricky that way. And not to discount anybody, I think I would be probably in the fetal position most likely, but when you think about
I don't know how to approach that one. I really don't. Even knowing the things that I know, which is not, it does not make me special. It just I've just learned to observe things over the years. And that's like telling that story. That could even rate in a lot of people's perspective as being, not a classic Bigfoot sighting that you just had, but look what I learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the sighting you have, it's what you learned from the sighting.
Right.
That could help you or somebody else later if you recognize it for what it is.
Right, and that's one thing I take to heart too, because I really think I've learned more just from listening to people relate their stories than I've learned from anything. I mean, even a book learning, researching, or whatever. No matter what subject, when people tell me their stories, there's always these nuggets that they deliver, and that kind of really connects the dots for me. And
I love reading Bigfoot reports especially when I'm bored.
Uh-huh.
I like pre-using the BFROs and other websites' stories,
Mm-hmm.
because you can take a given story, and unless if it's got great detail in it, you could just about go through each sentence and dissect it. I can, and be able to determine very loosely if this was real, or if it did occur, why it did occur the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've been able to determine a lot of times if somebody's wanting attention or somebody's really actually seen a booger. I've been able to determine a lot by reading other people's stories, and I could tell you within 10, 15 minutes if they was full of it or if they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I was fortunate enough to be that way was to grow up under the circumstances that I actually did. And it's as I said earlier when we first started the show, it's been an adventure, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I have no doubt. And the venture continues. Fortunately, I mean, it's not a quest that you ever finish, and maybe it's not even finishable. Like
No, it's not. It's not. And it always tickles me when somebody that's been doing this a long time, and everybody ages, and we naturally gonna pass on, along the journey one day. And people say, as soon as this person leaves, they say, well, they know if these things are real or not. And I'm sitting here already saying to myself, well, hell, you mean I got to die before I can figure out if these damn things are real yet?
Well, I think given your circumstances, you probably have it on pretty good authority that they are out there. But I'm sure I'll run into some interesting people one day. Oh yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think the Bigfoot world is full of interesting people, and there's some great people out there, and I'm not really immersed in it per se, as on the portal we kind of cover so many things, but I think there's all kinds of ideas out there, and sometimes it's really hard being on the on the outside. I'm not out there looking for them regularly.
I can just imagine, man. It's like a lot of people, they want to get into this dog man thing or man dog thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I just look at them and say, look, I ain't got time.
Yeah.
I mean, they say, well, it's a cryptid. I said, yeah, but the cryptid I'm looking for I know is real. Why do I want to diversify myself and just get my brain that much more screwed up by trying to look for something else that I know that I haven't found yet, when I can be just happy the rest of my days just doing with what I'm just doing with by chasing after a booger.
Right. So, where was I going to go with this? I had a question I was going to ask you, and now it slipped my mind. But I know we've got more stories to cover.
Happens a lot, don't it?
The older I get, the more common that happens, let me tell you. But I know we got about 6 minutes before the break, but I just was wanting to make sure you got a chance to get to all the stories that you wanted to cover tonight.
Brother, there's no way in hell I could.
Well, at least more of them. I should just say more of them because, yeah, I know
Oh,
it's.
there are. I'd like to end tonight in the next hour on one of the funnier episodes.
Yeah, by all
My
means.
granddaddy had one, and I figured that'd be a good way to wrap it up. But
Okay.
yeah,
We did hear back a little bit from Gary, and he's talking. This is what he responded with regarding the quad bikes. The story was told on Bigfoot Outlaw Radio and Sasquatch Chronicles. I thought it was from Bear and Kumbo. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, is what he said. Does that
So
ring?
he's talking about when Bear and Kumbo, I think it was back then, came over the ridge and they saw the Sasquatch go down on all fours and keep up with them. He was pacing them.
You there, Bear?
I'm remembering this, but
Okay.
I don't remember it being in a quad runner though.
Okay. Well, can you?
Kumbo, one time we was coming out of the woods, and I think he seen one trying to pace the back of the truck. If it wasn't him, it was another guy in Louisiana. I'm thinking that's who it was. He supposedly seen one through his rear view mirror on the trying to pace his vehicle out of the woods, so he just decided to see how fast he could drive out on that old log road he was on to see how fast it could keep up with him in an all-four position. And he got up to right at 45 miles an hour before he had to slow down to turn a curve around a turn. And when he did, that's when the booger peeled off to the side. So I do know from that incident that they can at least on all fours run 45 miles an hour and keep up with the truck.
Do you think that they're faster on all fours or bipedally? Which do you think is their faster form?
They're pretty darn fast either way they decide to go. And that's even with what some call belly crawling, which it ain't really a belly crawl. It's best way I can describe it. Kane Michaels, one of the outlaws, describes it as like a chameleon when it's twisting its body back and forth, weird. When it's on all fours, real low to the ground, belly crawling. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now they can move pretty quick, and I've even heard somebody say it looks like that stop motion stuff from The Ring. You know, the horror movie The Ring, when they would show those demons coming up, you know, with that herky-jerky motion crap. Yeah.
That herky-jerky crap, yep.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know else how to describe it. I don't watch crap like that because if I saw something like that running in the woods toward me, I'd die right there. And yet here I am chasing after 8, 9, and 10-foot tall monsters.
Yeah, I hear you. That's incredible. But yeah, we've heard about that belly crawl, and I guess I didn't realize that their arms would be out to the sides as well, like that. So
Oh yeah.
So their legs are kind of splayed to the sides, as well as their arms, and they're rolling.
They spread and as flush to the ground as they can get.
That's creepy. That's creepy as hell. Oh man.
I'm just glad I ain't seen one. I haven't seen it personally. Kumbo said he did, but you know, I can't speak for him.
Sure.
But I know Kane Michaels, the best he described when he was describing it, he said it just freaked him out. It freaked him out.
I can't blame him. I think that would be the end of the day for me too. I'd be like, nope, got to go home and scrape the underwear. It's time to scrape the undies. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going to our last break coming up, the third break of the night, and I just want to make sure to tell you guys after the Paranormal Portal, stick around because Paisley Wild will be coming up next with her The Spaces Between, of which Don is producer and also kind of a co-host over there, huh, Don?
Yeah, a little bit. I try to do what I can.
That's good. So that'll be coming up next. Do you know what she's talking about tonight, Don?
Paisley, who do you have on tonight? Oh, so okay, so it's just Paisley and me tonight.
Okay. All right.
Talking Beltane, because Beltane's next week. So there you go.
Yes, it is. I know that day well. Why do
I
I
know
know
you
that?
do.
Oh, it's my birthday.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to head to the last break in just a couple minutes. Want to encourage you to follow us on Facebook as well and to keep up with what we're doing on the show. There's a few changes in our near future, so head over to facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio and make sure that you're following us there for any announcements regarding the show or the podcast. So make sure you get yourself over there. And we are going to go to our break. So stand by. We will be back in another couple minutes. So grab a libation and, oh, thank you, Titan. Wow. Awesome. Beautiful. And thank you to everybody who's donated tonight. That's just wonderful. Thank you all for your help. It means a lot. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last half hour of our show tonight. It has been an incredible journey with our dear friend Bear joining us, one of the original Bigfoot Outlaws, right here on the Paranormal Portal. Now, Don, I know you're going to probably have to pull out at about quarter till. Is that right? Oh,
Well, actually, I was going to go ahead and jump off now. That way, I'm not interrupting Bear at the last half of the show.
Okay.
So I just want to say thank you, Big Brother Bear, for coming back on and visiting with us. We appreciate you, and thank you very much, sir.
Always a pleasure, Don. Appreciate you, brother.
All right. So to everybody else, I'm going to jump off. I'm going to be on Paisley's show in about a half an hour here. Brent, we'll talk later, all right?
All right, brother. Have a good night. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
And there we've lost the beard. Oh, well, that's all right. We still got each other, Bear.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now, what's another story you wanted to get to tonight? Considering I love the idea that you're sharing stories that you've never shared before. So, like, I got the exclusive here.
Yeah, well, I've shared this one, but I think there's a whole generation out there that hasn't even heard it. And it's always one I love relating. Is one of the funniest instances that ever occurred due to these things living on our property like they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I love telling the story, and I try to describe it too perfect at times, but I think it helps a lot by painting the picture the way it should be. But my grandfather in the 80s, I think it was about 84, something was getting into our chicken pen. Inside the pen, my grandfather had a chicken coop. Something was getting in the chicken coop and pilfering a hen every now and again. My granddaddy never gave it thought of it being a booger. Actually, it had been reputed in the neighborhood that there was some vagrants hanging around in the 80s that didn't have a problem with finding these little farmhouses off places, and if they had a chicken pen with a coop, they'd get in there and steal eggs or chicken or whatever every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting into the story, the night that this happened, it was a slow rain. It was kind of almost misty type rain, but it'd been wet pretty good most of the evening, so the ground was just literally sloppy, muddy. Some reason, I can't tell you the time, it could have been after midnight or thereabouts, my grandfather heard the dogs when they started running up underneath the house, because he lived in this old house that had a lift above the ground, maybe 2 feet tall. Whenever boogers or whatever would come around, the dogs they were yard dogs. He'd, let them run wild. Every time booger come around, the dogs would head straight to the middle of the house. When it did, it would hit every bottom floor joist in the house, rattling the house and everything else. You could always tell when the boogers were around or something wasn't right outside, because the dogs will wake you up by beating the back of their heads and their backs up against the floor joist that's underneath the house. But this occurred at night, and like I said, my grandfather was kind of prepared, and he done got pissed off because he done lost a chicken or two, and he was going to catch the son of a bitch that was getting his dang hens. And that night, for whatever reason, it was just him. My grandmother was there. I'd done married, and I was living in town. The dogs wake him up. He gets up, he hollers over there at my grandmama. He says, "There's something out there in the yard, or the dogs wouldn't be done crawled up under the house like they did, and maybe tonight's night I can catch whoever that son of a bitch is stealing my chickens." So he reaches over there beside the bed. He was wearing white boxer underdrawers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the boxers, not the tighty whities. And he always wore what, for some reason today, they call them white wife beater T-shirts. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They're
yeah.
like muscle shirts.
Tank tops or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, solid white. He is white shirt, white T-shirt, white boxers, whole 9 yards. Beside his bed, he had his old Brogan boots. He didn't even try to lace them up. He just slipped them on his feet. He had his flashlight by the bed. He didn't want to turn on the flashlight because if he'd have turned on any light in the house, anything that was out there stealing his chickens would have hauled ass.
Mm-hmm.
So he just slips over there to the corner where he keeps his double-barrel 16-gauge shotgun. Well, instead of keeping a loaded gun in the house, my grandmother didn't like loaded guns in the house, so to appease her, he never had the gun loaded. So he goes over there to this chest or drawer that he's got where whenever we'd buy him shells like for rabbit or dove hunting or deer hunting or whatever, instead of him just keeping them in their boxes, he'd always just empty all the shells into that one dang box.
Okay.
Well, he grabs a couple of shells and cranks open that old double barrel, breaks her open and plunk, plunk, drops 2 shells in the dang shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
He got his flashlight in his hand. He got his old Brogan boots on, but they're not laced up, so he's actually slip-sliding and tripping all over himself on the laces, trying to slip out the back door holding that darn flashlight. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, my granddaddy stood about 5'5", but he was the tallest man I ever knew. Mm-hmm. And he slips through the bedroom, into the living room, into the kitchen, and he slips to the back door, and he gently opens up the back door. That's when he noticed this mist and rain, the whole 9 yards. He's going to walk out there in a white T-shirt and boxer drawers. So he grabs this darn rain poncho that was sitting there off to the side, and he just sort of drapes it over his head and kind of drapes it around his shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
And he's got this shotgun, and this shotgun has a barrel on it, probably about 36 inches long. I'm talking about it was huge. It was almost, if you held the shotgun straight up and down, almost as tall as he was tall. And he done already loaded the gun up. He was trying to hold the flashlight in his left hand, holding it tightly around that poncho so he won't get soaking wet. Mm-hmm. And he's got the stock of this shotgun under his right arm, and he's holding the trigger guards with his right hand. And, that shotgun's a little heavy shotgun anyway. Mm-hmm. But he's bound and determined he's going to get whoever's out there messing with his darn chickens. So he slips out the back door, and he eases the screen door open, and he eases it closed. And so here he goes real quietly as he could through all this mud and rain and wet all over there to where the chicken pen is. Mm-hmm. He gets over there to about where the chicken pen is, and that's when he notices, because he had a booger light out in the back pasture, but it was just enough light that he could see the latch. He had a D latch on the gate to the chicken pen. Well, he noticed right off the bat that the chicken pen was open. So whoever opened up the chicken pen opened the D latch, manipulated it with his thumb. So he knows for sure he's caught some vagrant stealing his chickens. Mm-hmm. He opens up the gate, and about this time he steps into all that chicken crap that is nothing but wet, manure-y, sloppy, the whole 9 yards. And he's looking over there to the chicken coop, which he has a door to the chicken coop on this end of the pen. Mm-hmm. And he notices that the door is halfway open. Uh-oh. So this just confirms to him better that a human's doing this. So he's slipping up there toward this door. I can just envision he's saying the whole time, I've got this son son of a bitch. I got this son of a bitch. I got him red-handed. He gets up there to the door, and that's when he starts hearing these chickens are restless inside there. In other words, whoever's doing this is still in the gate.
Oof.
And still in there because he could hear the hens restlessly, you know, all that kind of mess.
Sure.
So he turns around. He gets his light primed up as best as he could, holding it in his left hand. He's trying to raise his shotgun up so he could point it straight at the opening of that door when he kicks the door open. And he's going to catch this son of a bitch stealing his chickens red-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what happens.
Okay.
I can see this shotgun getting heavier and heavier. It's wavering a little bit. Here he is, ready to manipulate the on switch on this big old flashlight he got. You got to remember, this was in the 80s when they wasn't no little bitty hand flashlights. These was even good ones.
Yeah.
And so he hits the button on that thing. He gets his darn foot up there. He kicks the door wide open. He hits the light inside there, and he sticks that shotgun up straight up into there. And there, looking at him straight as he could be, with a right hand full of a darn handful of chicken, is a darn Bigfoot looking him square in the eye. It shocked my granddaddy so damn bad, he touched off both triggers on the shotgun. What he didn't know, when he loaded the shotgun up, he put in 2 buckshot in the damn shotgun.
Buckshot or birdshot?
Buckshot, the most powerful load, double alt buckshot, that he just picked up 2 random shells out of that drawer I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And he cuts loose one barrel, but he had the stock of the gun under his right arm, not even at his shoulder. When he turned loose one barrel, the other one automatically kicked off the same time, throwed the shotgun smooth up in the air. The flashlight went one way. My grandfather hits the damn ground and falls and rolls around in chicken crap. By this time, the damn booger has done come unglued, unloosed, raised 20 times worth of hell, because now look at it from the booger's perspective. The booger's in there with a handful of chicken, looking probably to get him an egg or 2 to munch on while he's taking the chicken on up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Then he looks around, the door's opening. All he sees is a big old light in his eyes and a huge shadow of a mound over, remember the poncho over my granddaddy's head? And then my granddaddy turns loose that one barrel of that shotgun, and then when he hits it, the other barrel immediately goes off. About that time, an explosion happens he shoots the back wall almost out, killed about 3 of his hens when he turned loose the shotgun, scared the hell out of the booger so bad, the booger went through what was left of the wall, taking the remaining chicken pen wire that was on the perimeter, halfway up the hill, screaming like a son of a bitch, hanging on to that chicken.
Oh, no. No. Wow. That poor guy.
My granddaddy calls me the next morning. Asked me, what am I doing after work? I said, why? He said, I need you to come up here and help me fix my chicken pen. I said, fix your chicken pen? What happened? He said, just bring your ass up here when you get off work and we'll talk about it.
Oh, no. Oh, poor guy. Wow.
Poor guy. Could you imagine the damn booger?
Well, yeah, but he was stealing chickens now. He kind of had it coming.
Yeah, but we had to replace hens, fix the chicken coop, pull the wire halfway from the top of the hill, because not only did the booger, when he went through what was left of the back wall of the chicken coop, he took out the whole chicken wire on the other side and trailed it all the way up that hill, dragging it through 6-strand barbed wire fence, which tore down the damn fence, and we had to drag the whole chicken wire all the way back to the house, fix the fence, fix the chicken coop, and he ended up killing 3 of his best laying hens. So, you know, my granddaddy was just really excited about that one.
Yeah, I bet he wasn't, huh? Well,
True story, it happened.
oh, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. It's just
I
a
asked my granddaddy how did he like rolling around in chicken crap. He said, I don't want to hear another damn word from you.
more hammer, less talking.
That was it.
Oh, you know, I kind of wonder. So, you were kind of brought into all of this, you know. Well, I mean, this, like you said, it wasn't your idea, but it kind of landed into your lap, and it's become obviously a very big part of your life, and you know, you've left an incredible footprint for a lot of us just with your work and with your discussions and sharing your insights and stuff. But you know, the obvious excluded, how has this affected your life? I mean,
What affected my life?
yeah, I mean, how has this journey been for you? You know, it's something that you obviously didn't plan for, but it happened to you, and you've created a world around your experiences and
Well, it's kind of like what we was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
You can't unsee what you saw.
yeah. Yeah.
People can tell you all the time, and boy, don't I hear it. I hear it all the time. I just don't believe that happened.
Yeah.
Said, okay, I understand that.
Mhm.
But I said, you know, most of y'all guys around here are drinking. I don't drink.
Mhm.
They'd look at, well, what's that got to do with anything? I said, well, you can't say I'm a drunk.
Right. Now that's become hallucinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My stories never change because I've never had to fabricate or make any story up.
Right.
That's why it's so easy to never forget a story.
Right.
Because if you have to manufacture a story or manipulate a story to try to get a point across, you're going to slip up. And I've learned a long time ago. My granddaddy taught me that too. He said, a man don't never have to lie about nothing.
Mhm.
May not be that everybody wants to hear what he has to say, and they may not agree with him, but, you know, it's hard at times. It don't take long to figure out those who want to make light of it, and I just don't really talk to people like that.
Sure.
You know, if they're sincere about asking questions, I don't mind helping anybody.
Right.
But once I recognize the ridicule, I'll just let it die out on its own.
Yeah.
There's no sense in arguing with an idiot. It's like I told somebody one time before. I said, you know, look up the word ignorance, and it just means you just don't know.
Right.
And they'll sit there and I say, well, you know, you're just ignorant. And then they get pissed off hot at me for calling them ignorant. And I said, well, you did everything but look me in the eye and say I'm just looking you dead in the eye and I'm lying to you.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to sit here and accept being a liar, but y'all can't accept the fact that you might be ignorant and don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right. But the one thing about this phenomena is that there is a lot that we, you know, just can't understand. We got a question in the chat, and this is from Chemtrail Mix. He said, ask Bear what he thinks about the shimmer phenomena with Bigfoot. He said, I've seen it myself from about 12 to 15 feet, and my uncle has also seen it while hunting. And I asked him for clarification on what that meant, and he said it's like that Predator effect, you know, the movie Predator, where people are reporting seeing these, you know, obviously cloaked or hidden figures, but there's a light distortion. Are you familiar with that at all?
I haven't never seen it. I ain't gonna say it don't occur. I've never witnessed it myself.
Right.
Either they was there or they wasn't there. I do have one little question, and I hope this is not taken as an insult. 12 to 15 feet is not 5 yards away, you're within slapping distance of one. You sure you was that close?
Mm. They got
You
quite
get
a
what
reach.
I'm saying?
Yeah, they got quite a reach, right?
That's 3 feet within a yard, and 5 yards is the booger can slap your head off your shoulders within 5 yards of you.
Mm. That's a good question.
I mean, and the reason I'm bringing that up is not to insult the person at all.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are making a lot of mistakes by calling yardage footage.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people need to understand there's 3 feet in 1 yard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
12 feet is, what is that, 4 yards?
Yep. Yep. So
I mean, there, you can call, and I've noticed that a lot too. A lot of people get footage and yardage mixed up, and there's a huge difference there.
Sure. Right.
Like 30 feet, that's 10 yards.
Yep. That's 10 yards. But no, I think
But
it's...
see, a lot of people accidentally would say things like, oh, he wasn't but 3 feet away from him. I'm saying, you mean he was looking right down at you, and all you was doing was looking straight up at him? I mean, y'all was breathing on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute, I'm kind of with you now.
Yeah.
Let's get yardage and footage correct first. And,
Sure. But
and I'm not saying who asked this question did this on purpose. It's just a common mistake.
Sure. No, I bet it is strange the claims that people have, and again, it's the diversity of people reporting it. It's got me wondering what the hell's going on, and I don't pretend to know much about any of this other than what I've heard discussed, what I've read, what I've looked into, and conversations I've been a part of. I learn something every time, but I find these claims, both exciting and disturbing because,
It is.
if this is going on, then, we were already at a disadvantage just physically speaking, but if this stuff is possible too, we're at a much bigger disadvantage than, in terms of if there are truly negative ones out there that want to hurt people.
I'm not saying I have all the answers.
Sure.
I'll be the first to admit it. And when I discover all the answers, that's when I'm going to quit doing this. But I ain't quit doing this yet. There's still too many questions I won't answer myself.
Sure.
And, it blows people's minds, some of the questions that I have. And but I'm working on getting the answers, and it's not something easy. That's why it makes it so interesting and fresh every time you do it.
Right.
I know this. A lot of things that I've seen has always pointed to me that these things are flesh and blood.
Okay.
They're not from another dimension. I'm not saying that they can't have some kind of brain development to a certain degree, that through their vocalizations or possibly humming or something internally with each other that they are. And we've talked about things before, like infrasonic
Yep.
sound and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that it occurs. I also know that I think it occurs subconsciously. It's not something they have weaponized, because I promise you, if they have already figured out how to weaponize it, we would have known a long time ago that we're on the bottom of the food chain.
Okay. That's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point. But we got about a minute left, Bear. Can you let people know how to stay in touch with what you're doing and what you're up to?
Bigfoot Outlaw Radio, Matt Knapp's show. It's on YouTube. All you have to do is look it up or type it in on a search engine. Matt Knapp also run what we call the Bigfoot Outlaw Hideout. It's on Facebook. You can get to us through also has another channel called Bigfoot Crossroads. But anything related with Bigfoot Outlaws, me or any of the group, you can get in contact with me through them immediately. And I've trusted you enough and known you now for 3 years, brother.
Yes, sir.
And if you ever have one of your listeners have a question or really needs to get up with me or something, I'll let them. They could even get in contact with me through you.
All right, brother. Well, perfect. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our show tonight. Thank you all for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure, Bear. Thanks so much for coming back. I hope you'll come back again. And thank you all. Have a great night. Stick around for Paisley Wild, The Spaces Between. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night. I'll be back tomorrow night.